and welcome to another edition of Real News. I'm your host, David Shine Thompson. And also on the line with me, per the usual, your host, and a good friend of mine, Mr. Henry. Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir. How is it going?
Oh, man, it's going well. Going well. Enjoying another day of quarantine and a happy eighth show for Real News being back. And I'm excited about it. But good morning to everybody, and good morning to you, Mr. Henry.
Morning, sir. Morning, sir. Let's start this morning, as we do every morning, with the greatest audience in the nation appreciation segments here. Tell us what you're thankful for. Tell us what you need help with. Tell us what you're struggling with. Tell us how you're doing psychologically, mentally, spiritually, physically, all the things. Drop that stuff in the comments section. We're building a massive community here of followers. If you need any help from any of other followers in any particular way, if you need outreach, if you need someone to talk to, if you need someone to ping some stuff off of, if you need someone to bring you back down to earth, or if you just need a decent meal prepared or whatever you need, throw it in the comment section. Hit myself up, hit Shine up, hit us up in the. Is it called DMs on Shine on Facebook? Shine, or is it not? I think it's just called.
I think we can say DMs, but just to be specific, we should say you can hit us up in Messenger, in the Facebook message.
All right, there you go. Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
You gotta slide into my DMs.
Just slide into the Real News DMs.
Yeah, just slide on. Hey, and smash like. If you like Real News, smash like. And, the reason we have you do that is because we're trying to grow this community. We're not trying to make any money. Just so you know, it's not about self-aggrandizement. We just want to increase this community, increase the resources. And by resources, I mean people, because people are the best resources there is. And I think that's something that we're finding out every day. But Mr. Henry, go ahead.
I was gonna say we got a good number of folks in the chat comment room right now. Got Zach, Stephanie's in there, Kelly, Trace is in there, Judy, Sherry. Shout out to everybody that just all jumping in. Rick, Victoria's in there. Anything you throw in the comment section, we'll bring up here in just a little bit. You'll see our entire show notes in the description section if you want to follow along with some of the things we're pinging off here. If you want to fact check us along the way, by all means, feel free to do so. Looks like we might even have someone. And we're also streaming on. What is this, Sean? YouTube and Twitch as well, right?
Yes, Real News Radio on YouTube. Go ahead and open your app up or open it up on your computer. Go ahead and find us on YouTube. If the stream ever drops on Facebook, that's where you want to go. You want to go to our YouTube stream and use it as the backup stream. And if all else fails, you can go to and I'll be able to change the name in 2 weeks, but right now it's Narvicon on Twitch. It's my gamer tag. It's Narvicon. But I would bookmark all those just in case any time the stream drops on Facebook, because for some reason it's the most finicky of all of them. But it's also the best platform for video streaming because it sends little notifications out to everybody. But go ahead and check that out. Hey, Mr. Henry, a little live programming here. I sent you a link to the unified chat.
Oh, sweet.
It's in the chat function of Zoom.
Yeah, I saw that.
You can click on that, and then you should be able to see everybody on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook.
Look at this, man. Technology, bro. New world, new age.
Yep.
Hey, shout out to our boy Eric McCain back in, man. I've been missing my boy Eric for a hot minute here. We used to be part of the Cool Kids table back in the day, back in action now. Shine, let's jump into it, buddy.
We had some big news yesterday, man. Big news. Right after, it was literally like 37 seconds after we got off the air yesterday. If we just pushed through it, we could have carried it live on air.
That is true, actually. That's literally the first thing Shine said to me as soon as we got off air. Is like 27 seconds ago, he started this address. We could have just kept going with it. Now it's weird to get back on there. Obviously, everyone knows what we're talking about here is Governor Bill Lee is issuing this 2-week safer at home order. Yes, let me stress that, a safer at home order, not a shelter in place order. It's about a 5-minute clip. I think Shine, I want to play and pause and break up some of it here because he touches on several different points. But let me just ask the Real News audience going into this, and Shine in particular, some initial reactions. If you're surprised by this at all, I think Mr. Henry's initial take on this was, I kind of saw this coming. I led the program yesterday, Shine, by saying Governor Lee sending some troops into Gatlinburg to just sort of assess the situation. That was a slight signaling, as far as I was concerned, of him sort of saying, like, if y'all can't figure this out on your own, I'm going to have to do a statewide thing. Now, importantly, this is not a shelter-in-place order. Now, functionally, I don't necessarily know what the difference is, let me be real. Like, as far as enforcing those, the enforcement mechanism on either side is you can fly some drones around like they're doing in Washington or something. You can have police patrol streets, but by and large, it's going to be a little bit difficult thing to enforce either way. Shannon and we're just having a conversation off air that I personally think one might be better than the other, just for the psychology that it plays for people, indicating the severity of what's going on. But neither here nor there. Shine, what's your take on this? Chat room, what's your take on this? Where you think we're going with it?
I think it just kind of builds on what we were talking about yesterday, and what we talked about even last week, where I said it was my hope that things stay the way they need to be in Tennessee, where we don't have to have an enforceable stay-at-home order. Now, I think there is it's not even a semantic difference, Mr. Henry. It's not a semantic difference between safer at home and shelter in place. Shelter in place is a term that's a real term. It's part of office security, and it means there's an active shooter situation. That's what it means. And safer at home is different. I mean, and I've actually heard people who work for state governments on other programs talking about this. Shelter in place is different, and it means there's an active shooter situation. And a lot of people at the moment really don't like people mixing the language here, and states like California saying shelter in place and using that in a way that it's never been used before. So like it's not a semantic difference. I think people are kind of making this stuff up on the fly, though. I mean, like I said, there was an official order, and not for the state of Alaska, but in a town of Alaska, called a hunker down order. That came out of Alaska. A lot of these people are making this stuff up on the fly, but I really enjoyed the bias. I don't know about the decision, but the bias that Governor Lee seemed to exhibit of, I really believe in personal liberties. And we'll see that in the video where he said that I want to have a bias towards personal liberties. I'm not going to tell everybody to stay in their house and that be enforceable by force. But he did encourage people to take personal responsibility, just like the video that we watched with Glenn Jacobs. And I think that's the most real way to do it, Mr. Henry, because as we've said numerous times on this show, when it comes to a lot of these things that the government's trying to do, volunteerism is the only way they get the majority of the population to do it, because there's not enough federal employees, there's not enough state employees, municipal, county. Even if you used all of them, including all the bureaucrats, there wouldn't be enough people to tattletale on the neighbors and get people with guns or sticks or clubs or whatever, or even drones to everyone's house. You need volunteerism, and I'm glad that he's acknowledging that as a reality, is that volunteerism is the only way that can get it done. I just hope that Tennesseans voluntarily choose to keep me and you and everybody else safe by minimalizing contact with people.
Yeah, and see, and that's where Sean and I were having this conversation literally right before we came on air here, where Mr. Henry was saying it again. This is the same thing I used to do back in the day when it came to the say climate change argument. I would sort of fall on the side of the consensus of the scientific world, the medical world, whatever it might be. And in this same sense, we're hearing, President Trump's own experts indicate that, given best case scenario right now, if we do these mitigating factors, we still might be looking at potentially 100,000 deaths in the country when this is all said and done. Now, let me pause for a second and say it's important to keep that in somewhat of a perspective here. Again, I'm not a medical expert, but go check the data and the figures for yourselves on an average bad flu season as to the number of deaths that accumulate in the United States. It's important to compare those two figures to 100,000 potential with this and whatever this number is over here. I'm not going to try and quote them because I don't have them in front of me. Suffice to say, it's not comparable, but it's at least worth having that conversation of looking them up. So the only point I was making is there's a different psychological component behind, like you just mentioned, Sean. There's a different psychological component behind a shelter-in-place order as opposed to a safer at home order, regardless of the fact that neither one of which are very enforceable. Again, if I'm wrong here, tell me, Real News Audience. Let me know in the chat section. How do you enforce that? Aside from doing some drones or issuing fees, and you're not going to lock someone up. Clearly, you're not going to drive them back to their own home. So I don't know. The public shaming aspect is, I think, the best thing you can have from this. And I think some psychological component of letting people know the severity of the situation we're dealing with. If we implement mitigating factors right now, I personally believe the shelter-in-place order might have a little bit more gusto to it, so we can actually try and stymie off some of the potential harm. That's just me. I don't want to belabor the point because I'm sure we're going to rehash on some of this stuff. So let me go ahead and get into Governor Lee here. Let me make sure I share this with sound and everything. Optimized for the sharing clips, yada, yada. Here we are. Let's listen to Governor Lee. All tune in for a little bit of this ourselves.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us at our Monday COVID-19 briefing here in Tennessee. The scope and the magnitude of this pandemic continues to challenge every nation in the world and every government across the world. Currently, our state has 1,834 confirmed COVID-19 cases, an increase of 297 cases since yesterday. COVID-19 is in 77 of our 95 counties, and we have had 13 deaths across the state. More than half of our state's also currently under some form of shelter-at-home orders, especially in our population-dense cities. But I have
one real quick note there, Shine. Again, this is what we covered last week. Part of the reason why Governor Lee was forced to do this is because out of all the counties in the state, I believe there's only 6, 7, or 8, somewhere between 6 and 8 is the number. There's only about 6 or 8 counties that can actually issue these safer at home orders. The rest just don't have the ability to do so. I know that's a weird thing to say.
No, it's because there's only those are charter counties. Those are people. You want to have some fun with state civics? There are counties in Tennessee that matter more than other counties in a literal way and have more authority from the state because they help comprise the original state of Tennessee.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring that up one more time because some people might be wondering why is he saying that some counties are doing this, some counties aren't? Why don't we just leave it up to the local municipalities and all that other stuff? And why was his hand forced? Quite simply, if he's not doing it, some of these counties cannot. By the way, that's go ahead.
I was going to say, did he say 27 out of the 95 counties have cases?
I think he said 77.
77. So we're quickly approaching one in every county.
Yeah, I would think so. And that's obviously McNally behind him and Sexton, Speaker of the House and Speaker of the Senate back there. Lieutenant Governor McNally, as he's known more. But if you want to know who these other two randos behind him are. But
I know I did.
Thanks, buddy. We'll continue right here.
I have a particular concern about this situation escalating in our rural communities. Today, I'm announcing measures that will implement safer at home guidelines in every county in our state to better our approach to social distancing while also protecting the livelihoods of Tennesseans. This is not a mandated shelter-in-place order because it's deeply important to me that we remain a state that protects personal liberties. But it is a strong urging for Tennesseans to stay home when at all possible.
All right, let me say this real quick, Sean. If I'm pausing or breaking too much, let me know and just let it carry through.
Oh, no, you're good. I think a lot of people saw it on the news last night. I mean, it's not very long. I think it's good to stop and break down everything individually. I think it's good.
And you heard what he said right there, man. He said this is not a shelter-in-place order. He's making a clear distinction for a very important reason, essentially saying, I'm leaving it up to you Tennesseans, right? And I'm going to be a little bit harsh here. I really am. And give me some pushback in the comment section if you want to. That's fine. But he's saying I'm leaving it up to Tennesseans to prosper, or I'm potentially leaving it up to Tennesseans to fail here. Like, we have to be able to live with the ramifications, whatever our own decisions are during this time period. All right. And I don't know, Shine, tell me if I'm pushing too hard of that, but I feel like that's a little bit of what he's saying. And he's doing it for two reasons here, buddy, okay? First and foremost is this sort of like underlying constitutionality of the issue, the underlying and sort of inherent nature of what this country is, not just a representative republic, but the rights that we have as individuals, that somebody else, this collective idea of government, cannot tell me and force me what to do, for better or for worse. I can fail on my own and yada, yada, and so forth, all that, right? And secondly, he's also saying this because he knows we got an economic situation going on too, buddy. He touches on this a little bit going forward here in a minute, but he also knows, like, if I don't leave some avenues open for businesses to be able to innovate, if I just carte blanche blanket shut down everything, I'm going to have a major stall problem in the economic situation in Tennessee. Yeah, we have a $2 billion surplus. We're going to be okay for a little bit, but that's a rainy day fund. This is a little bit more than a rainy day, bro. We're sort of getting close into the monsoon season here, buddy.
Well, at least we have a rainy day fund, and at least we're not overwhelmed with debt in the state of Tennessee.
Right.
Hopefully, they're using the opportunity to refinance. I want to throw in here a comment from Eric McCain on Facebook here in Sumner County, right above Nashville. People are all over the place. Some essential movement, of course, but you mentioned social shaming aspect, and on the hip Hendersonville, I don't know how to say that place, Gallatin Facebook pages, people are taking pictures of packed parking lots. Lowe's, for example, had many coming out with plants and potting soil. Also people out with their kids, etc., and they're posting this stuff on Facebook and shaming the mess out of them. Agree or not, this is just what's happening. Kelly Northup says on Facebook, Loudoun County Mayor says we are at 8 positive. Obviously, there are many more untested. But anyway, just wanted to throw some of the comments from Facebook. Eric McCain also says we're near 200 cases and many tests waiting to be seen.
Well, and see, I'll even take this off screen for a second, man, so people can get into this, because this is a good spot to I wanted to bring this conversation up of drawing that line, man, of where personal responsibility starts, what this idea of libertarian is, right? This whole sort of aspect of the non-aggression principle, man. I was actually trying to study a bit of Rothbard yesterday to really get my head around this issue of, is there a libertarian idea behind using the power of government to help with some of this situation, to stop some of the situation, to stop movement of individuals. Now, that is a weird conversation to even bring up. Let me be real, Sean. It sounds oxymoronic on its face. Do you get what I'm saying? How do you use the government to stop movement of people and still claim that it's libertarian in sense, right? And you may not be able to, but I feel like this is, again, when I said yesterday, we're getting back to an aspect of first principles. We're getting back to conversations of fundamentals here. I think this is a fundamental conversation we need to be having, because if somebody else's decision to haphazardly run out and not clean their hands or go out in public knowing that they're sick or possibly contagious, if that decision encroaches upon my freedom, my liberty, now we do have a libertarian problem, right? Now we do have a libertarian problem in the sense that that's, in one small sense, what government was set up for. Now, again, I'm a large part of me here, Sean, and let me say this is again Mr. Henry thing here. If my two personas, Grant's over here, Mr. Henry's over here, this is a large part of Mr. Henry just playing devil's advocate for the sake of starting this conversation. Because some of what Eric mentioned here, I just don't see the need to do that, bro. Like, I don't see the need during this particular time to make a rational, thoughtful decision. Sean's throwing his glasses on because I think he's getting in Sean mode here for the response. I just don't see the need during this time period to have a rational, thought-out decision to go be posting pictures just flaunting the best medical advice that we have out here. Conversely, I also understand what Kelly just mentioned a second ago, saying I can appreciate the governor's position of not making this a mandatory policy. And I get that. I totally understand. Because at the same time, bro, there's going to be a lot of governmental entities right now that are going to try and use this as justification to slowly seep away some of those liberty rights. And once they get them, they never give them back. So I'm fully recognizing all this stuff, but at the same time, I'm just saying, at some point, if you don't take enough personal responsibility on yourself, your liberty stops when it encroaches upon my liberty, and there has to be some broaching element there. You know what I'm saying?
Well, ahead, I think even before you get into the ideological conversation, right? Because from there you jump to justification, correct? Once you set some ideological boundaries,
right,
we need to talk about the facts a little bit. And then we can jump to ideology. So I think, and this is my, I don't know if you can call it opinion, I guess. It's kind of my opinion because I'm not a health expert. But what I'm getting from everyone in the health world, from the coronavirus task force meetings, all these, Dr. Fauci being on all these shows, about why we're doing lockdowns in general. Why are we doing them? Are we doing it so that there's not going to be a lot of people getting the virus? Is that why we're doing it? Because I don't think that's why we're doing it. I think a lot of people are going to get the virus no matter what we do. Tens of thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people will get it no matter what we do. What I've heard is the reason we're locking down is to increase hospital capacity, increase PPE, respirator capacity, ventilator capacity, so that when it hits, we can deal with it.
Sure.
So, but here's the problem, though, is that's a very difficult concept to explain to people, is that we're buying time. Because I think what everyone thinks we're doing is if everyone stays home, this is all going to go away. I don't think anyone is saying that. I don't think anyone has said that. But I think lots of people are operating under that assumption. Yeah. When really what I think it's but that's weird, and that goes back to the people taking pictures in parking lots and shaming people. Are they shaming them because they're saying, "Oh, you're not giving the government enough time to get increased hospital capacity"? No, they're not saying that. They're saying, "Get home, you're going to kill me." Because they think staying home is going to keep it from spreading. I mean, I guess that stop the spread thing came out 2 weeks ago, but it's not about stopping the spread; it's about delaying the spread.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Well,
think that's a very important distinction because I don't know if you can use force to say we're going to, to delay it. If the implication was if everyone stays home, it's going to save the world, maybe you could use force and say mandatory order. But if all we're doing is increasing hospital capacity, trying, whatever, all those different things, in building up preparations for lots of people having it at once, or a, 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 a significant amount of people having it over a long period of time.
yeah. Yeah.
And those are important distinctions when you're talking about using government force to make everyone stay in their homes and shut their businesses.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the motivation behind why we're doing what we're doing is extremely important. And I think you're right. I think part of the issue going on here is that we're trying to make sure we don't hit that sort of medical tipping point, or the hospital tipping point that we saw in Italy, right? Where we overwhelm the system, we overwhelm the ICUs, we overwhelm the ventilator capacity. If we can stall this out for a particular period of time until our technology can catch up, hopefully the private sector will provide some of this stuff. Then maybe we can get over at this particular time. And we've already seen indications for possibly, if this comes back again in the fall, what we're going to be able to do then is hopefully be better ready for it, like South Korea was this time. Part of the way that South Korea got their head around this is the massive amount of testing they did early in the stages. And those people that they found early in the stages, they were able to sort of quarantine off. So they created this sort of little bubble sphere, if you will, that didn't seep out into the rest of society, which is why the rest of society could operate as normally functioning as it would, right?
See, those stories out of South Korea, I don't know, that it's making me. This is why I don't understand the whole situation. Because theoretically, if it's spreading like it is with people, a lot of people are staying home in the United States, like lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
And we've tested way more people than South Korea tested. As of now, we've tested, like, I think we're almost at over double, what South Korea tested. Either they have a different strain of it over there, or this isn't as bad or as contagious as we thought it was. That's my theory. Because theoretically, if one person in South Korea had it still, I mean, it's South Korea, Grant. Those people are literally living on top of each other 100 at a time. You know what I mean? If one person still had it, they could infect, what? It's 50,000 in 2 days and 100,000 in 3 days, and then a million after a week. Is something like that. That's supposedly how infectious this is. I just don't believe that they're done with it. It's either two options to me. They're either not done with it in South Korea or Singapore and China and Taiwan and other places, or it's not as infectious as everyone said it was. Well, and not as deadly either.
Well, I think both of those need to be taken into account possibly, but I think what's going on in South Korea also is because of their, let's be completely real here, man, and I don't know how people can take the statement, but it is what it is. Because of their proximity to China, they've dealt with MERS and they dealt with SARS before, right? They dealt with respiratory style infections previously that are similar to this coronavirus infection, okay? So they've had this stuff implemented previously, and they know how this stuff breaks out. They know how it gets out. They know how to handle it properly. I think everything with South Korea was all based upon the timing of when they started doing their testing. And now the number of testing that we're doing now is fantastic. It gives us more data to aggregate. It gives us better data to form models off of, and we have more people that potentially could be infected. So we're doing way more testing. Plus, it also it helps calm you down sometimes too if you take into account the total number of testing that we've done that actually amounts to the infections that we've seen, right? Those are decent numbers to play out sometimes too. But I think what South Korea did is because they've been through similar style things previously, they were able to hit it early enough. And we've heard stories in America, obviously, about testing that happened all the way back in December and January when we first heard about some of this stuff coming out. And some of the doctors were saying, well, it's not testing positive for flu, it's not testing positive for strep. Maybe that's the same thing, I don't know. But it's something else different out there. We just didn't have the testing implemented early enough. And again, maybe I'm wrong about some of this stuff, but I think that's what I've heard coming out of South Korea. That's supposed to be part of our approach for if and when this comes back in fall, or the whole vaccine conversation, which for some people, man, I mean, we have to be for real too. Like this is something I just want to briefly mention now, because this is a whole nother quagmire I don't want to get into. But Shine, you and I know that Vaxxer conversation was just now starting, the trajectory, and that was just now starting to take off right before this thing hit, bro.
The what conversation?
the vaccine anti-vaxxer conversation,
Oh,
like that
well,
stuff is still simmering in the background over here somewhere. And literally 6 months to a year from now, we're going to have this massive conversation about a COVID-19 vaccine, and all that stuff's going to crop back up again. You get what I'm saying?
well, I think it's totally fair to be weary of a government mandating a vaccine. Now, I know given the current circumstances, that seems crazy, but I mean, like, I don't know, if there was governments mandating you do stuff to put in your body, like,
Right.
I don't know, I'd be weird about the government making me take heroin, that'd be
Dude,
weird.
anything the government's going to force you to put in your body, you should immediately have a problem with.
Well,
I'm not saying we don't have a
a
conversation with
biased
it.
against, maybe.
Right, a bias against.
That
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean, don't do it, but you should be
Hmm.
weary of that, and we will have that conversation. I think I'll till the ground early and say, because of all the focus on this and how widely it will be distributed, I assume that there'll be more eyes on it. There will be far less likely for there to be anything negative because if they do mandate that vaccine, it'll define a generation like the polio vaccine.
Mm.
But Mr. Henry, can we get to a little comments from the chat?
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
Nick Cudd from Facebook says, "How big of an emergency has to occur to abandon libertarianism temporarily in ellipses for authoritarian moves that may be necessary?" And you were getting into that with that Rothbard deal, and I think after that maybe we should go back
Yeah.
to the video with
Yeah, I think so. And
Governor
and
Lee.
I think Eric's comment actually goes a little bit to what Nick's comment is as well too. Is Eric saying in Facebook here, as the libertarian, there are a few philosophies we can look at. The non-aggression principle, of course, which not everyone would follow by possibly infecting others. But as a libertarian, I can ignore government all day. But when medical professionals are telling us how bad it is, I need to listen. The question is, without government intervention, would private citizens be willing to suit up and enforce a quarantine somehow on their own? And that's ultimately what I think it comes down to, right? In general, I think societies are nothing more than just an extrapolation of social compact theory or contract theory. And maybe I'm wrong here, but the general idea, I think, and the greatest experiment ever done in human history, the American experiment, as far as I'm concerned, is this idea that individualism reigns supreme unless and until your individualism encroaches upon mine. Now, the question that Nick Kant is asking is like, what is that tipping point then? All right, so how far do you abandon libertarianism? And I don't necessarily know, Nick, if you have to abandon your libertarian roots at this point to say that this is possibly one of the functions that government could play. All right. And again, I might be upsetting some people here, and this is why I need some pushback in the comment section. I've always appreciated the real news audience holding me accountable in some of this sense. And I've always also admitted to being a minarchist as well. I'm little L libertarian in philosophy, but I'm not going to go full anarcho-capitalist on you either. I do think there's a role for government to play somewhere. He goes on to say Nick goes on to say Nick Cudd goes on to say for the authoritarian moves that may be necessary. And that's what I'm saying, brother, is like some of the stuff we're seeing going on right now is based upon the modeling of what people are not able to justify in their minds yet. You get what I'm saying, Sean? Like some of this
Yes.
data is not there. Some of the pandemonium in the streets not there yet. Some of the tipping points for the hospitals hasn't hit yet. But we're also like 10 days behind Italy. So this is what I'm trying to tell people. Whatever you see happening in Italy, just pretend that it's happening with 325 million people.
Okay, but you can't.
Right?
Okay, but that's a little bit fear mongering, Grant, because it's not apples to apples.
Sure.
Like Italy is the Detroit of Europe. Let's be real about that. Or maybe LA is a better example. It's like the LA of Europe. There's a part of Italy that's really nice, and then there's the rest of it. I mean, I'm not trying to maybe even not drag Italy. All of the Mediterranean European Union states, Spain, Italy, Greece, and then some of those islands in there. They've all been struggling economically since the 2008 crash, right? They've
Mm-hmm.
all had huge influxes of third world populations. So they have people with less hygiene habits than a normal European by the millions, by the way, by the millions. They have those people. They also have a different culture. They're a different culture where lots of people live in one house. There's lots of touching and kissing and hugging that is not as common in the United States. And I don't think you could compare apples to apples our hospitals or our doctors or our equipment. So
Yeah, sure.
I don't, or even the people of Italy to the American people, the standard Italian versus the standard American. So I don't know if it's fair. I don't know if it's fair to say look at Italy and that'll be happening here. I think that we've already had more deaths in just New York than Italy, and there's no roaming gangs attacking grocery stores like there are in
No,
southern Italy. That's happening
no.
in Italy where there's organized crime gangs of people who have no money, like 20, 30 people at a time breaking into grocery stores. So I don't. I just. I just wanted to hold back just a little bit because there's some scary stuff going on in Italy, but I think we have stronger systems than they do.
No, and you're 100% correct. And the only reason why I bring that up by way of analogy is just to point to people and show to people, like, as Americans, as a true belief in voluntary systems, as a true belief in, can we coalesce together and actually work with our fellow man to get over a terrible thing that is happening in society right now? Can we do it better than anybody else that's ever done it out there? The answer is always emphatically yes. Unequivocally, yes. I think every single time America has always done it before, and we will continue to do it best out of anybody else out there. As far as our healthcare system, you can see the comparative stats as to the number of ICUs we have, our preparedness for what's going on, the ventilators that we're putting together. I mean, all that stuff is going to be much, much better than the way that Italy was able to approach this. And you're absolutely correct. As far as the demographic makeup as Italy is concerned, you have multiple generations of families that are usually living in the exact same household, which you don't have in other situations. I'm just looking at what's going on in New York and other places as well, and just saying, like, look, they're telling us that in about another week or two, we're going to see another trajectory rise up, right? So, and again, I don't think that's something to be completely overwhelmed by. I don't. It's going to be one of the worst things that's happened in our generation, but at the same time, this is what I was harping on yesterday. I think it's a time to use to progress and propel yourself forward, to look after your fellow man, to start back from first principles again. And after we get down to the slow tip of this coming backwards, in about another week or two, if we can stay strong for about another week or two, we'll be better situated than I think any other country out there in the entire world, as far as I'm concerned. Right?
Yeah, and like we said earlier, anywhere, and this is still my opinion, Mr. Henry. The jury, no one in the world is free of this. It's not fair to look at the places in Asia and say they've beat it and look what they did. We don't know. The jury's still out on every single government, local, provincial, state, national, all over the world. The jury's still out on what the best course of action is in general,
Yeah.
because like you said, it could come back later on this year, it could come back next year, it could go away in 2 weeks. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? It could go away with warmer weather. There's no, I mean, all these different things are a factor, but we do not know what will be the most successful because we don't have the benefit of being 5 years ahead of now and looking back at places where the economy crashed and there's a civil war or something like that. We don't know what it's going to be like in Russia as oil prices fall. I mean, just the oil prices, let alone the COVID-19 thing. Oil or Saudi Arabia, those two countries live and die by their oil prices, and they're paying a lot of people to not riot in those countries by giving them money and food. And if the oil money runs out and they're not paying for money and food, it's going to be hard to keep their government coalitions together. So what I'm saying is, we don't. I think in 3 or 4 years, maybe we can look back and say, well, we know who did the right thing, or who got lucky,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's also part of it too. But we should probably finish out this Governor Lee thing and then get back to the comments a little bit.
Yeah, I got one comment I want to get back to. Let's get to Governor Lee here, finish up where we left off.
Because I also believe that with personal liberty comes personal responsibility.
Hey, there you go.
I have said that I have sought discernment to identify the right decision at the right time for the right place. Today, I signed Executive Order 22, which restricts businesses that cannot possibly safely operate during this COVID-19 crisis, including businesses like barbershops, salons, recreational and entertainment outfits. The order at the same time provides for the continuation of essential businesses throughout every county because of my belief that we must protect our economy while protecting the lives of Tennesseans. We've asked Tennesseans to stay at home when possible since March 22nd. Yesterday, President Trump provided new guidance from the CDC that's evolved and extended isolation measures up to April 30th. And we believe that Tennesseans in non-essential capacities should take the additional step of remaining at home from work, school, and non-essential businesses. Now, I want to speak directly to Tennesseans who have the privilege and the capacity to safely remain at home for the next 2 weeks. We need you to do that, to protect the lives of your neighbors and protect the lives of Tennesseans.
What you were talking about, Sean.
To protect the well-being of our healthcare workers and our essential employees and vulnerable populations like the elderly in Tennessee. We need you to stay home where at all possible. Your habits and your routines will make the difference as we work to swiftly defeat COVID-19. We will work together to establish new habits, like safely supporting Tennessee businesses, ordering takeout or shopping online or shopping for essentials at the grocery in normal quantities and resisting the urge to panic buy. The faster we blunt the surge of this spread, the faster we all get to go back to work. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused tremendous uncertainty for Tennesseans and left many small businesses in a vulnerable position. So we're also calling on the business community to embrace alternative business models and partner with us in the fight against COVID-19. We're calling on businesses and entrepreneurs to be part of innovating in the field of healthcare management as we rapidly scale operations to care for the sick. I've directed Unified Command to engage in a partnership with Launch Tennessee to work directly with Tennessee businesses and entrepreneurs who are willing to switch production to make life-saving PPE and medical supplies. To that end, we've welcomed Margaret Dolan of Launch Tennessee to our Unified Command team.
He then goes on to just sort of then introduce the people that are around him, passes it off to Lieutenant Governor McNally for a quick introduction of Speaker of the House Sexton there. Then he gives a little address. So not missing much there, leading off. But Shine, I'll let you give a quick comment and then two other comments we should probably touch in Facebook here. Obviously, you heard him talk a lot about the economy there. That's the next topic I think we're going to bring up. We might just give some quick updates as to what this essential businesses are now are and are not. I have a quick brief breakdown of that new executive order that changes Executive Order 17. But to your point that you were talking about before, Sean, you heard him say there a second ago, saying to those people that do have the ability to stay home, to those people that have the luxury of not being an essential business. That's important stress right there, right? I mean, we have the luxury right now of not being essential people. And thank you to those essential people that are still out there late making society run. Yeah. That's to your point, what you're saying before. We need you right now, because you're the ones that are allowing the rest of the system to continue to operate as you take the strain off, you know?
Well, and I love that he, is encouraging businesses to innovate to help the crisis.
Yeah.
I mean, there's great anecdotal stories about lots of people who are changing over their business for temporary or, for who knows how long to make whatever is required, whether it be PPE or ventilators or anything else. I heard about the My Pillow guy, the guy who has all the commercials on Fox News. Try My Pillow. It's so nice. So now My Pillow guy is making masks and other kinds of PPE. I mean, a lot of people are doing it. I'm glad they're doing it. I know that in the climate right now, it feels like Governor Lee is not doing enough. I heard that from people yesterday. But I just asked the question, what could he literally do besides that is actually enforceable? Because of taxing authority in the state of Tennessee, he can close businesses, right? Like, because of the authority to tax, he has the ability to close businesses and enforce that probably pretty well, because there's a lot less businesses than there are houses and apartments and things like that. But I say that we do a shelter in place now, or a forced mandated stay home now, but we still need people to be at home 2 months from now, Grant.
Oh yeah.
You don't get to pull that card more than once, and you don't get to pull it indefinitely. You will be, and because if you do, I think you'll have more problems than the virus would cause you. I mean, what are the estimates right now? 100,000 deaths?
Somewhere between 100 and 200 is what Trump's people are saying.
Out of 360 million, those would all be tragedies. I don't want to downplay them because they're statistics. But if you had civil unrest in the state of Tennessee, you could have more than 100,000 deaths in the state of Tennessee. There's 7 million people that live here. If everybody, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of those people live in highly dense populations. I think it's very wise, considering the state's resources and density to do it this way. And I think it also is wise because it encourages businesses to innovate to help. Because
Well,
there may be people who were in their business trying to do what they could do till yesterday,
yeah.
and maybe yesterday makes it go, okay, let's look at what we can do. Let's go to the federal websites, the state websites. Let's see if there's anything we can do with our business and our resources to help this crisis. And I think that's good to encourage that too.
And from what you were saying a second ago of what more could Governor Lee do in the capacity of a governmental role, right? I think that speaks so much to the community that you're building in the Knoxville area right there. And this is what I mean by this, Sean, is the community that you're building is largely has this precedent set upon it of you don't need politicians to make moves anymore. Is that not what y'all are doing a little bit over there, buddy? Like
And
you don't need
yeah,
government
as
anymore,
far as it goes with this, I've been telling
right?
people to, I mean, it's not that we don't need government and we don't need politicians. We need to
Sure.
we need our constitution and we need things to run like they always have. So I don't want to sound like an AOC here and throwing baby out with the bathwater. What I'm saying
But
is, as far as these elections, don't go work on a campaign. Organize yourself into a group that pushes a policy, and then the politicians will come to your group
exactly.
and
Exactly.
they'll see your influence, they'll see your what do you call it, your gumption, so to speak, and they'll say, man, if all these people are willing to not even get together and rally around a candidate but a policy, whoa, these people are really, if they'll go knock doors for a policy, if they'll make phone calls for a policy, if they'll text their friends, a little blurb about a policy, then man, I need to go talk. Those are energized people. I want them on my side, or at least I don't want them not on my side. I don't want them against me because those are active people. So I tell people all the time, at least as far as emphasis and bias, we don't need to be throwing all our eggs in one basket by supporting
Well,
candidates where we can support policy. Yeah.
and more than anything, it just says to me of recognizing that same wave that's been sweeping across the nation, not just in America, but all across the world at this point, of just returning power back to the people, returning the power of governance back to the people that it was originally founded within. In the founding fabrics of this country, it was always meant to remain within the people. I personally think one of the best things we could do in this country is instill power back into the 10th Amendment and get rid of the 17th Amendment. Don't have time to belabor that point right now, but this is why we were bringing up a little bit yesterday of talking about one of the ways we can be able to get through this is working together with each other. We spoke about yesterday about American industries and how they're going to be able to innovate. And you just heard the governor a second ago talking about one of the other reasons why he's not going full shelter in place is because he's recognizing some of the potential economic catastrophes that could come on the very back end of this. So yesterday, as you were speaking about American industries being able to innovate and help with and by the strength of the American consumer, these industries can come out stronger on the other side. And think about it this way, Sean, like our society is built on the principle of empowerment, right? The idea that every single person has something to contribute. When we lived up to this ideal, our country has accomplished great things in the past. And this principle has also driven our progress, no less important during these critical times. So what I guess I'm saying is indeed, this is when our principles matter the most. So facing a struggle that's already affecting millions of people, we need to empower every single person to contribute in their own ways and weather this storm in their own ways individually, and so that collects throughout the community right now. All of us have a role to play, and every single one of our roles matter right now. So as with all the other challenges in history, this crisis, I believe, can be tackled from the bottom up, both in a medical sense, in a scientific sense of obeying by the stay-at-home orders, if you or if you can do that, if you're not essential, if you want to look out for not passing this along, and both in an economic sense as well. A uniquely American approach would look to, say, contributions from government, business, educators, and people from all walks of life in every community to find innovative ways to assist each other. So actually, as we were talking about some of this yesterday, I was just trying to find as a sense of some good news that's been going on out there, buddy, as a sense of some ways that businesses are trying to innovate to help us get over an economic hurdle that might be coming. The ways that some of these businesses are doing just that in an American sense, buddy. All right. So just listen to some of these as we play these out. All right. We have distilleries across the nation that are converting their kettles and stills to make hand sanitizer. Found a story from the New York Post, obviously, that's talking about where's the headline? Anheuser-Busch and Artisanal New York Distillery capillaries. They're now making hand sanitizer during this coronavirus. This is a quote coming from the Anheuser-Busch Twitter account saying, "We have a long history of supporting our communities and employees. This is no different at all right now. That's why we're here using our supply and our logistics chain and network to begin producing and distributing bottles of hand sanitizer to accommodate the growing needs across the United States in our medical communities." This mega brewery says they have at least 19,000 staff, with not was not the only company that's helping out pushing these hand sanitizers across. Now, of course, the populace need this, but it's desperately needed in our medical communities right now as well. It said they're going to be working with the Red Cross. We also have technology companies. Some people may not be feeling great about this, but technology companies are having sort of data analytics side of ways to sort of track what's going on with the spread of this virus, right? Track what's going on with the modeling of this virus. In the education side, buddy, this was profound.
Oh, mad innovations in the education world.
Right?
Mad innovations. Innovations long overdue, may I
Yes,
add.
dude.
Long overdue.
And this is a bit of what I'm saying. Some of these long overdue stuff, some of the, sort of these draconian level sort of like government things. Why was this red tape here before? Why did we have to go through such and such organization to get such and such passed before? It doesn't make sense. Listen to some of this. In the education system, when schools closed, creative minds found new ways to serve students. So OpenStax at Rice University, they expanded access to their online customizable courses, offering a record number of students a chance at individualized learning. This is an important one right now. Pay attention to what I'm saying here. The link is in our description right now if you want to follow this one. Yes, Every Kid has launched hashtag Learn Everywhere, which is a free resource that aggregates curriculum for the parents that are now homeschooling more than 30 million children across the United States. Dude, that is wild to me. Yes, Every Kid making curriculum available that aggregates
I've heard of them. That's a good organization. Yes, Every Kid. That's a good organization. Actually, that's part of our network. That's part of their that's part of the foundation, I believe. But a great Yes, Every Kid is a great organization. Y'all should check that out. They're offering resources for education right now.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
It's hashtag Learn Everywhere. It's a free resource that aggregates curriculum for all these parents and now 30 million kids at home that are now being taught as homeschoolers. So they got to have curriculum somewhere, right? Hashtag Learn Everywhere. Check out Yes Every Kid. It's in the description section right now if you're in this situation of having to homeschool your parents. Also, this Dallas-based restaurant that it's a really cool restaurant idea that set up a situation where they have juveniles coming out of the justice system. And the original idea was, instead of getting them to serve time in juvenile sentences, sort of creating this perpetual downward spiral that just become constant repeat offenders, they would just go serve dinner and make dinner, right? So they literally become chefs, they become waiters, and the rate of recidivism was astronomical. I mean, the recidivism rate for some of these kids was as high as 50-60%. It would drop down to literally single digits. So that restaurant that was doing that, instead of doing that program, now they're now using those same children to make over 16,000 packaged meals for a week. 16,000 packaged meals per week for kids who are dependent upon school lunches. That's another major problem. We have the Phoenix, which is a remarkably effective addiction group, a recovery group that's all moved online, potentially preventing tens of thousands of people from relapsing during isolation. This is also could potentially help some of these being able to see your therapist stuff from some of the issues we brought up yesterday, Sean. And lastly, one of the things is, obviously the rapid rise in several charitable initiatives that are tailored to local communities and local concerns all across the nation here. And again, man, some of this, not all of this, but some of this plays into, I think, part of the reason why what we want to end the show with today is Steve Mnuchin predicting, I know I butchered that name. You're going to help me with this, Sean.
Mnuchin.
Predicting,
Steve
thank you.
Mnuchin.
Mnuchin predicting that predicting an economic bounce back in the third quarter, man. So again, dude, just a little bit of good news to end sort of the show on here of, we have the governor issuing a stay at home, but I'm telling y'all, a couple more weeks, we get through this together, we innovate our businesses together, we're going to be so much stronger the back end of this. And we're already seeing great case examples of industries changing across the United States. I'll let you respond, John.
Absolutely. I think it's great to see everyone doing their part. I think it's great to see the companies stepping up. I think it's great to see these innovations. And in a place like the United States of America, where we're not completely reliant on the government to make massive social changes to fit the situation more correctly, like these people are doing with education. That wasn't, that's not the Office of Government Education. That's people taking risk and doing things to help people and hopefully providing a good product. I think it's really great. I have another good news type article from popculture.com. Dolly Parton believes coronavirus pandemic is a lesson from God. I'll put this
Mm.
in the description, but I'm not going to go through the whole article. But I'll read through the first paragraph and then tell you about something else she's doing. But Dolly Parton offered her fans an inspiring message amid the coronavirus pandemic last week, sharing a video which she said she believes that the virus is a lesson from God. The country legend began her video at the bottom of her stairs singing "Climbing the Stairway to Heaven" because the virus has scared the hell out of us. But she went on to say, "I'm not making light of the situation. Well, maybe I am, because it's the light, I believe, that's going to dissolve the situation.
Mm.
I think God is in this. I really do," she said. "I think He's trying to hold us up to the light so we can see ourselves and see each other through the eyes of love. And I hope we learn that lesson. I think when this passes," as she continues, "we're going to all be better people," she said. "I know that I have a positive attitude about it, as negative as it seems to be right now. So keep the faith and don't be too scared. It's going to be all right. And
Mm.
God loves us." And that's from Dolly Parton. East Tennessee hero, or Tennessee hero, and maybe even a hero to others around the country. But she's going to also be reading bedtime stories. I posted that
Oh,
link
nice.
on my Facebook page, but you can check that out. Also, Mr. Henry, before we head out of here, I think it's only fair that we do a little commercial for our employer, since we're so appreciative that they're continuing to pay us. Americans for Prosperity. Our network aims to break barriers to help people create a society of mutual benefit. We're also one of the largest grassroots organizations in the country, affecting change and having the ability to do so. And me and Mr. Henry thank them so much for continuing to employ us, and giving us the opportunities to be, out there, folks, that me and Mr. Henry have always tried to have an effect on our community and our state and even the federal government. And this has really just been the perfect fit for us, so that we can do that in the most effective way, paired with their resources and their network. And also, it's helped us get to know our community, at least for me, in a better way than I did before. Having leaders and doing these events and teaching people about things. But anyway, just appreciate them. Check out Americans for Prosperity Tennessee on Facebook. It's a member of Grant and I's team. Think of it as, like one of the old buddies from back in the day, like that used to be on the radio, like Richard Esparza or Daniel Herrera or Elaine
Hmm.
Davis, someone like that. But it's our buddy Josh down in Chattanooga. Chattanooga. He's a great Tennessean. Cares a lot about you all and freedom and making sure we hold government accountable for things. He's doing a great job over there on Americans for Prosperity Tennessee on Facebook. So please check that out.
And you're also going to want to be able to follow that AFP Tennessee Facebook page, because a lot of the content that Shannon and I are going to be delivering on the Real News section here, that's some of that content is going to be slightly more Americans for Prosperity centric, if you will, right? So calls to action, some volunteer petitions that you can sign when our government gets back in operation, some of the bills we're working on, most importantly for what's about to come up. Interviews that Shannon and I have scheduled with local representatives during these times of trials. I know everyone wants to hear from their representatives. We already have schedules set up for obviously what's to come in the next week here. Representative Zachary, and I just got confirmations from Representative Lafferty as well, Sean, as we were doing this show. So those are two representatives over there in y'all's area, in the near the Knoxville area, anyways. But I forget what Lafferty's district is, but I know it's right around that area, anyways. But nevertheless,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
but we have those interviews coming up with local legislators, so we're going to keep you all aware with what's going on. Direct interviews, town hall style. Check out all that stuff. And Americans for Prosperity, as you see back here. We'll also be doing the casual updates in here if you want to be able to take action with us at any particular point. We cannot thank them enough.
Hey, Mr. Henry, I want to do a quick straw poll with those still on the stream.
Yeah.
Of those watching, put yes in the chat if you agree with what I'm saying. I would like to be a part of a non-broadcasted private hangout to ask questions and hang out and talk about news stories or whatever you wanted to talk about with Mr. Henry and Shine. If you'd like to be a part of something like that, hit yes in the chat, because we're thinking about putting something like that together. And I'll wait for the video. I think it takes about 45 seconds for the video to catch up. But if you're interested in doing a non-broadcasted, just hanging out where it kind of looks like the screen you're looking at right now. You'd have your video up, and me and Mr. Henry would have our video up, and we could share articles and just talk. Maybe have a little happy hour or a morning coffee. We can work out the details. But if you're interested in that, put yes in the chat. And I think tomorrow, Mr. Henry, I'd like to announce that we'll take the first. Let's start with the first one. 10 people. We'll take the first 10 people if you send a direct message. Oh man, here, let me finish this, and I got to say something about the chat. But if you send us a direct message that says, I want to be a part of, actually, let me say it like this. If you send Real News a direct message that has your name, email address, and zip code, so we can put you in our thing for Zoom and send you an invite, a private invite link, and we'll take the first 10 people. So send us a direct message on Real News with your name, email address, and zip code, and we will get you invited. So we got at least Ray on Twitch is saying he wants to be a part of it. We'll take the first 10 people, and we'll do that, announce tomorrow, and we'll maybe announce the day and time. Maybe if you want to in your direct message, put a day that's good for you or a time period that's good for you. But that's something that I want to start doing once a week, is where we can do a non-broadcasted, so you can really be honest and share your opinion, or if you need to talk about something that's a little more vulnerable, you can do so without, the hundreds of people who watch this stream, watching you.
And then just we're doing a bit of live programming here on Air Real News audience too. So just so I know and what the audience knows too, you're talking about just like a Zoom style. Zoom, obviously the program be using Zoom style, just sort of like hanging out sesh, talking politics, playing some games, just hanging out, like literally just a community space atmosphere. We can just be people with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I mean, it's one thing for me and Mr. Henry to entertain you and bring you the news and whatever, but we really want to be your friends. We want to be your friends. Yeah. We want to hang out, and we want to have a sense of community. Like I said, we're not doing this show to get famous. We're not doing it to get paid. We're not doing it to be influencers. We just want to hang out with you. We enjoyed so much the community that we've had over the years with you all, and we're trying to figure out ways to meet that community need for all of us in these weird times. And I'm getting ragged so hard on the Facebook chat for saying what? Grant and me. I should have said Grant and I. I think my middle school English teacher may be in the chat, and I apologize, Miss Schwartz. It's Grant and I. Get it right or pay the price, Shine. And then my grandmother said I cringed too.
That's why I'll tell you, dude. That's why we love the Real News audience, in all sincerity. But that is why we love the Real News audience, and I know Sean feels the same way. As the iron sharpens irons type thing, man. If we don't have folks like this, especially people in our lives, family holding us accountable, Sean, how are we going to get better?
How are we going to do it?
How are we going to do it? We wouldn't do it. We would just be sloppily put together people just coming together all unkempt on air and whatnot.
I love that you just said slappily. That was nice. That was very nice. Hey, so let's check out this Mnuchin thing, and then we'll ride out of here.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's check out the Mnuchin thing. Let me get back.
Mnuchin, Steve Mnuchin.
I mean, he's my Mnuchin though. That's what I'm gonna call him. Steve.
Just think of it like Ted Nugent. Mnuchin.
No. He's my Mnuchin. This is my Steve Mnuchin.
Steve Mnuchin.
Let's listen to Steve Mnuchin because he is my Mnuchin. Here we go.
I don't know what the numbers are going to
Oh, you don't know what
be this quarter. What I do think is we are going to kill this virus. We are going to reopen this economy. And in the third quarter of this year, you're going to see this economy bounce back with very large GDP numbers and low unemployment back to where we were beforehand.
Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin predicting a major comeback for the U.S. economy after the coronavirus pandemic is defeated, and saying it'll happen in the third quarter. That is roughly July till September. Katie, I'll start with you. Sometime in the third quarter, that seems really ambitious to me. But it all depends on how Washington and the administration responds, what they let businesses do. From a quantitative perspective, the recovery from the last recession during the Obama-Biden administration was literally the worst on record. That is according to Federal Reserve data. GDP recovered at the slowest rate that we've seen since they've been keeping those records. And we also saw the divide between rich and poor dramatically widen during that recovery. I wonder what are some of the things that this administration could do to make the recovery better and have that sort of, you expect a V-shaped recovery after a big downturn like this because you can bounce back? What could they do, you think?
Well, I certainly believe that the Trump administration has built up their credibility when it comes to the economy. So when they say that they believe that we'll be able to come roaring back by July through September, as you just mentioned, that people say, okay, they got us into a good economy that we were roaring and working in January. This is not something that is in their control. And we do believe, based on their track record, they will implement policies that allow us to get back to work. Now, the reality of that could look very different. There are a number of restaurants that have already closed their businesses for good, but the beauty of America is that you get to start over, and there is hope in starting over. And there is going to be a challenge of people getting back to work, but people also consuming. As you know, Melissa, this is a consumer economy that was driving all of the numbers that we have been seeing over the past 3 years. Are people going to want to spend their money after being in the situation where you can't work, you can't save money, and you're digging into your savings to pay your bills because your job is gone? So that is going to be the challenge. But clearly people want to get back to work. The frustration right now is the balance that the administration has to make between the public health crisis and the economic impact of the decisions that they're making to keep the economy closed. So certainly people are ready to get back to work.
Absolutely.
But whether those jobs will be available is another question.
Well, Steve, I mean, a lot of that depends on the government response. So in the last time, the Obama administration went heavy on the shovel-ready jobs, which were...
All right, so we can obviously,
Oh, you don't want to listen to the bald British guy?
It had nothing to do with that. It just so happened to fall on the best.
I just don't think you like bald British guys, dude. I think that's what it is.
I've revealed my...
Your
my
bias.
disdain for bald British people, yeah. Oh, man. By the way, Josh Perkey said on Facebook from the true Bat Dad himself, not Josh Perkey, but Thomas Wayne quote here, why do we fall so we can learn to pick ourselves back up? I think it's a little bit of what's going on right now, is it not? And I don't know how much I know about economics nor trust Steve Mnuchin's prediction here that at least by September we'll be well on our way to recovery if that is the end of the third quarter.
Hey, like I said, people who are used to using data on a moment-to-moment basis are financial people who actually have to make decisions based on something when everything is not available, right? An industry that does that all the time, who makes decisions with partial information, builds partial information into concrete guesses. That's the financial world. Unlike a lot of other industries, they do that all the time. Now, they're right sometimes, they're wrong sometimes, and we get mad when they're wrong, and we definitely get mad when the government bails them out for being wrong. But the point needs to be made that out of all the industries that make guesses based on partial information and have to live with the outcome, it's financial people. Now, I know he also works for the government, but I mean, I can go back to that interview that I never did post that on Facebook, but Ben Shapiro's Sunday Conversation was with Mike Pence and Dr. Birx, and her description of the way the economic White House team and the health team are constantly working together, constantly sharing data, constantly using comparison to figure out what should be done next and what kind of data they should be gathering and all those things. That makes me feel a lot better that people are thinking about the economy and the people are thinking about the healthcare situation, and that the smartest people theoretically in America are working those two groups are working hand in hand, day in and day out, to make sure that both of those crises don't spawn other crises and are as contained as they can be.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point you're making too, that this guy obviously works with data. And look, whether or not he's just throwing something out there to sort of instill confidence in the American consumer, you heard one of the analysts there say a second ago, something that I think everybody knows. You don't have to be good at economics at all to understand what she's saying. Obviously, I'm not. Right? I don't barely know what I'm talking about with economics, but you don't have to be great. You don't have to have a qualified degree in the subject to understand that America was a consumer-based market. All right, and as consumerism is dying off, so too is our economy a little bit. But I will say, you can never count out American ingenuity. You can never count out America grit. You can never count out American generosity as well, right? And I think through those three particular things, our tenacity, our stick-to-itiveness, our ingenuity, the way we can just innovate on a dime, and the generosity that we have from the top down as well. We will be able to get through anything, and especially this economic situation that we're about to come up into currently, man. I'm telling you, that's part of why. That's honestly, that's what part of what leads me to believe that when Mnuchin says by September we could actually be seeing V upward trends again. I'm telling you, man, if enough Americans got behind that, then yeah, absolutely, I think we could.
Well, there's how many people filed for unemployment? It was something like 3.6 million.
A lot.
That's
yeah,
a lot of
numbers,
people. We're getting close to 1% of the population. Now it's way higher than 1% of the working population. The people who actually try to work. But if you do have a job, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Mr. Henry. If you do have a job, you're sitting on cash right now.
You're not spending it.
You're not spending it.
Aside from essentials, you're not spending it. That's for sure.
Well, and not just that. You're maybe a little afraid to, you want to make sure you have a little bit. So that when the president and the Treasury Secretary says that there's a pent-up demand, besides those 3.6 million people that just filed for unemployment, the other, what is 130 million or something like that? I mean, there's like 150 million or so. There were 150 million employed people. Those other 147 million, I'm not a data person, but you get what I'm saying. A large amount of people are just sitting with money in the bank ready to spend when this is over. I know people who are thinking about buying a house. I know people who've refinanced their businesses because of the low interest rates. There's all that going on. And right now it's being done to save money in business. But these businesses that do survive this are going to be so efficient, and their overhead's going to be so much higher. They'll be able to employ more people. You get what I'm saying? And
yeah.
But anyway, I think that it's at least theoretically possible that what he's saying is true, or at least the circumstances being what they are, that could happen.
Well, and I would too just make one more appeal to the Real News audience who's ever watching right now. If you have the ability, the capacity, not everyone's going to right now, but if you have the ability, the capacity to say shift some of your buying habits around, shift the way that you're spending money. I know my wife and I, like you just said, China, we're not buying gas. We're only basically buying food essentials. We're not going out and seeing movies. We're not doing the entertainment thing. But whatever that surplus in money was before, if you can have an opportunity to shift some of those buying habits to keep other businesses alive, dude, please do so. And this is not a virtue signaling thing here for what I'm about to say, so please don't take it as it's going to sound like that. But that's part of the reason why Real News posted this thing last night. If you saw a guy come up on the Real News feed last night that looks straight up like the Hulk, this guy is massive, bro. I don't know if you saw us post this last night, but his name's Brent. Felicia Slattery was someone that you and I knew, Shine, back in the Real News talk days, right? I believe I'm fairly certain this is her husband. I'll go out on a limb and say yes, it's her husband. But he was a personal trainer. The guy is massively jacked, and he's shifting all of his stuff over now to do like Zoom meetings. You don't need anything at home. You don't need any weights at home. You just need your own body mass alone. And he has this like whole program put together to keep you in shape or whatever, simply through freely accessible Zoom meetings. You send this guy a message, whatever. He'll send you the whole thing back. He'll get you in Zoom meetings, personalized training 1-on-1. That's the type of stuff that I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the type of innovation that I'm seeing going to be happening where businesses are forced to stay alive. If you see this happening in ways that you can participate, do something to help out. If you've been looking for some personal training anyways, get it from the Hulk, man. You guys, the Hulk. It's literally on our Real News page right now. Just scroll down a couple things you can see. Actually, while I'm talking about this, man, I'm going to pull this up so you can see what I'm talking about. Probably be a better way to do it. But I'm telling you, Sean, if there's ways that you can do things to help like that, find ways to do it. I don't know if it's still the curbside takeaway. I don't know if some people are still afraid of doing that. I don't know what it looks like to different people, but I'm telling you, we need to collectively, all together, get our heads around being able to do something about this sort of, the purchasing power that's been going on. I mean, Shine, you and I have been talking a while back, man, that like as far as demographics are concerned, the countries that are least able to handle something like this, some major economic downturn like this, the ones that are least able to handle something as far as the economic implications are concerned are those that do not have a consumer base built in. Now here's what I'm talking about, buddy. And we've went over the same data before. If you look at the average birth rate of, say, I don't know, any European country or any Eastern country, Japan,
or just the demographic Christmas tree, whatever. If you look at the demographics, it's all older people who are close to retirement or in retirement, and then the age of what you would call a consumer class. Those is a much smaller proportion of the population. Whereas we have millennials, which are all consumers, and the biggest baby boom since the baby boomers. Not quite as big, but we had a baby boom in the 80s, unlike any other industrialized nation in the world. So we have consumers. Not everybody does. Not on the scale that we do.
And that's what I'm saying. I think that's what's going to make America a little bit more poised to handle this than some of the other countries, just because we have a class of individuals that, as long as we're still able to find jobs somewhere through employment, we have a consumer base of, I think the average American birth rate right now is somewhere between 2 and 2.3 or 2.4. Don't quote me on that, but it's right around what you need to have to sustain a growing population. Virtually no other developed nation in the world is anywhere near that. Now, obviously, Middle Eastern countries are far surpassing that. But as far as these developed nations are concerned, dude, like, we are the consumer base for the next generation. To my point here, was talking about before,
for the world. For the world.
Sorry, for the world. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, not just in the United States. We will be buying the world's goods for the next 20, 30 years. Yeah.
Exactly. So you'll see, obviously, our live stream that's going right now. That's a terrible face I'm making right there.
I'm hitting my e-cig. What a terrible thumbnail.
I know, we need to change that thumbnail. Anyways, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the event that I was messing around with this morning. And then right here, here's our Hulk dude. Is he not, bro? Looks like just this massively cut dude, like veins popping all over the arms. This is what I'm talking about. These are some of the business that I'm talking about supporting. I've met this person one time, by the way. This is not like a kickback thing. I'm just like, this is a cool thing that people are doing. Details down here of how he's doing, the personalized training for you. That's the type of stuff that I'm talking about supporting. If you see some of that going around, share it. If you can get involved, do that. That's the type of small little activity that if you do it enough times across the nation is going to help us quite a lot.
And we'll do it as much as we can responsibly. And we can't do a whole show based on this. But if you're trying to do something, if you're a real news listener, you're trying to do something, put it, either send it direct message or you can post it, and we'll try to get it into the show. I think that's totally fair. Like, we're not getting kickbacks, we're not doing this for money, but we can push stuff out there, and I think that's right now with the audience size. I think that's manageable, Mr. Henry.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And if we get 100 direct messages, we can't do it. But if we get 5 or 6, we can go through them and show them to people and stuff like that.
Well, and let's be real, buddy. Like, this is just me talking to Shine right now. I'm not even recognizing there's an audience, but it would certainly be sort of a symbiotic give and take there. It's sort of a mutually beneficial thing. I'm sure some of these people we'd have come on to present and promote their businesses, they would also have listeners of their own that might be interested in politics also, right? Let's help grow each other's community here, right? Make it a whole symbiotic thing. And let me go out on this this note here, buddy. Zach said in Facebook, when you were asking me before about disliking bald British folks, Zach did say that typically bald British people are the villains in these movies, right? So
fair enough.
Fair enough.
People, bald British people who like cats.
Right.
Watch out, man. Watch out.
Hey, one other thing I wanted to mention too, buddy. Stephanie said on Facebook a second ago that the Oak Ridge public school system, is also giving away 1,000 meals a day in Oak Ridge. Just want to give a quick shout out. I don't want to put on full blast as to who this person is, but suffice to say, she is involved in the public school system, knows what she's talking about. 1,000 meals a day, Oak Ridge is giving away. Big shout out to the public school systems as well.
That's awesome. Well, Mr. Henry, I already got some music playing here. I guess it's probably time to end the show.
Let's do it, man. I can't hear it, but I'm going to pretend to groove on it.
Yeah, groove on it. Just pretend to groove on it. Well,
if
thank
I'm
you.
Off beat,
yes.
Don't blame me.
I'm going to blame you, buddy. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening today. This has been Real News. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. With news, commentary, and friendship. For Mr. Henry, I'm Shinebox, David S. Thompson, and this has been Real News.